Welcome to the podcast. Today's guest is Alfie Russell. Alfie, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Dom. It's a
That's
pleasure,
right,
mate. Been a long time coming.
Yeah, no, definitely. Thank you for coming on as well. So, how are you getting on in lockdown before we get into it?
Lockdown is a funny one, isn't it? Nothing um, in my lifetime, probably let alone your lifetime, have you experienced something as
Yeah.
crazy as this go on. But I'm getting there slowly but surely, every day is a different day and I'm just taking it how it comes, as most would.
Oh, are you still there, mate?
Yeah, sorry.
Sorry, I thought you cut out. So
Yeah.
what have you been up to? Obviously, I saw a post from you recently. If we sort of go into that a bit, because I think it'd be good to sort of talk about it. But obviously, you had a few issues with your mental health. How did that come about?
I think mental health is sort of it's it's a hard one because everyone goes through some form of uh,
Mm.
depression, anxiety, panic. Everyone has their own little issues in life that causes these
Hmm.
things. Obviously, I've had a few things happen to me that have caused anxiety through loads of kind of stuff, depression,
Mm.
not much work, um, not being
Yeah,
able to do things that I love, like fishing when I hurt myself, not having much
yeah.
money over Christmas, important times,
Hmm.
my son's birthday, being very sick, physically sick, which to this day I still think was the coronavirus. Um,
Right.
everything boils up, and also I have my mind plays certain tricks on me through stuff that I maybe shouldn't have done.
Yeah,
Should
yeah,
we just say that everyone has their
yeah.
own their own form of mental health, and gets affected in their own way. I've had loads
Yeah.
of supportive feedback from people saying that if you ever need me, I'm here, which is
Hmm.
lovely to hear. It's lovely to
Yeah.
make yourself sort of feel like you're worth something, because in the deepest sort of stages of feeling worthless, your mind can then keep going and keep going. As you know,
Yeah.
obviously
Yeah.
mental health is the highest sort of has the highest effect on suicide, especially
Yeah. No,
in
absolutely.
in men, young men, and it's not good. A lot of people have probably sometimes in their life felt like that. um I personally haven't felt like that, but I can see why
Yeah.
people have felt like that. I'd rather I
Mhm.
explain today to my therapist. I said, if I could go to sleep and it go away, I'd much rather do that than jump off a cliff. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I've got
Yeah.
a beautiful young family. I've got a lot of things that most people would look at and a lot of people don't have, and sort of think, why is he going through that? And the truth is,
Yeah.
anyone can go through
Yeah.
something that can affect them. Like, it's so your life can turn. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
At
it
the
doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't work that way. I mean, I've been in some pretty dark places in the past, and recently actually over Christmas, and that word you used of worthlessness, it is that, and it's like a horrible feeling of dread, and I'm weird. I tend to go up and down. I don't know whether there's anything wrong or not, but I get it when I'm down. I can't see. It's weird. It's almost like everything's very dark. You can't see a way out. But normally, I'm a really positive person.
Yeah,
Um, I don't know which way to turn. It's a strange thing. Yeah, I get it reasonably sort of regularly, but yeah, and you can't describe it to somebody that hasn't been through it or had something. It's a hard one, isn't it? Like you say, it's not black and white. It's not, oh, you've got all this stuff. I mean, you look at all the massively wealthy, famous people that have taken their own lives.
well,
It's
you look at that poor Caroline Flack. She literally lives 2 roads away from me. And
oh wow.
yeah, like I was driving past constantly. Didn't know, like,
Mm,
driving past. It was actually not her new house. It was one of she'd obviously moved not long previous. Driving
mm,
past it, I said to the missus, I said, I wonder if that's what's her name, Caroline Flack's house. Like, this, it sort of all fell in around the same time, and it
mm,
turned out that it was, and obviously someone who just had a few little bits of rough patch in their lifetime. Obviously, where they're sort of in that limelight, and it's like the carpet's just been swept from under her feet. The poor woman, and I can't relate because she's obviously a huge public figure. But when you get depressed, like, God, especially if you're that much in the public eye,
I was going to say, you think everybody's scrutinising you. You can't hide away from it anywhere. You couldn't even put the bins out or anything like that.
It's such a shame, but it's good to talk about it. I think if well, personally, I don't mind talking about it. My girlfriend, I broke down into tears to her. I just said, I need to sort this out. I need help. Because I didn't feel right, and sort of went from there. Went to the doctors, and I had loads of supportive help from my family. But if something's up, I just advise everyone to talk about it, because it even got to a point with like social media. Fishing, it can be a very happy place and a very negative place. As a lot of people know, social media in itself can be very positive and negative. It has caused a lot of positivity and negativity in loads of different things. But I'd wake up, and the first thing you do, go on your phone, and I'd look on Instagram and bits and bobs, and there'd always be something or some kind of negative comment, photo, something, message. And it would, straight away before I've got out of my bed, I'd have the hump or feel unhappy, and I just thought, I just need to scrap it. Like, fishing it's not about that for me. I went fishing and made that after to follow with what come in my angling. Do you know what I mean? I kind of needed to make Instagram and stuff for sponsorships and as a platform for that kind of stuff, so-called work. So it is a hard one, and it's good to have a break. So I haven't been on Instagram for months, since around Christmas, and I haven't felt the need to download it. I actually quite like the fact that no one knows what I'm up to.
No, it's nice, isn't it? And it's as well, I think, like you mentioned it there, whenever you put obviously you're out there in the open, in the public eye in terms of the fishing world, it's no matter what you do, you could be a saint that helps everybody, that helps grannies across the road daily and all that, and there'll still be some twat giving you negative abuse, trying to pull you down. It's there's some odd people out there, isn't there? Definitely.
Yeah, you're gonna get it in any form of anything, I suppose, because if someone's doing well, there's always going to be someone who isn't happy with why they're doing well or how they're doing well. So you just got to take it as it comes. I've obviously had negativity thrown at me from a young age, like since I was 13, 14. I'm now 22 in a month, so I've sort of dealt with it and I can brush it off. But sometimes it's sort of, like I said, getting up in the morning, looking at your phone, and it's constantly there. Although I brush it off, it doesn't bother me.
Yeah, it just turns your mood, doesn't it? Or
yeah, it's just a mood. Whereas now it doesn't mentally affect me. It's just more of a mood thing, and then obviously that's just a minute thing to obviously feeling down within yourself. It could be it's just something that obviously I thought would benefit myself if I come off of. Do you know what I mean? It's not totally essential. Some people might actually do better if they have social media platforms and the love and stuff from other people comforting them if they're in a bad place. But
it's each to their own, isn't it? I think
each to their own. You got to find what works for you. Obviously that Instagram's more of a platform for my fishing and to share captures with people, and to obviously promote the brands that I'm associated with. So when you're having a bad time, there's nothing better than having a break.
Yeah, no, definitely. Do you want to talk a bit about how the brand stuff came about?
What, being sponsored?
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone loves that. I know it's a bit of a
Yeah,
probably
it's.
a topic you've sort of
Do,
discussed
do you
loads.
know what? I haven't talked about it. It's good to actually talk about it.
Okay.
I get a lot of messages, and it's a hard
Hmm.
one to sort of put
Yeah.
across in message. It's easier for someone to listen to. So, yeah, literally, I grew up fishing with my dad and my uncle as a kid. They'd
Hmm.
take me out, and I'd fish on my own, sort of in what they call drains, rope
Yeah.
fishing and rod fishing with the float, sort of at the age of like 6, 7, by myself down on the southeast coast. And as I sort of progressed into carp fishing and stuff when I was younger and still fishing for other species, I I was posting a few little pictures in the Angler's Mail now. Oh, it is the Angler's
Hmm.
Mail, they're still going, yeah. In the
Yeah.
Angler's Mail, chub, barbel, all kinds of species, tench, and a brace
Hmm.
of Park Lake carp from Hampstead Heath
Hmm.
when I think I was 12. Um, Two 30-pounders, 12 or 13, I think I was at first. This is like the first proper when I was first getting into carp fishing, like so-called
Yeah.
specimen carp fishing. And I got a message on Facebook. It was from a guy called Winston at Nash TV. At the time, he's gone on to work with loads of other companies and stuff now. And it was to do with filming an urban banks with Nash
Yeah.
at the time with Alan Blair, and that was sort of the start of things. I was then go on to win the I think it was sponsored by, yeah, it was by Fox at the time, um,
Hmm.
Specimen Cup with the Angler's Mail with all them specimen fish I caught, and it was sort of at the time it was like I had this message from Nash, and then I won this cup, and I was at Fox, like taken around all the office and stuff, and presented with 3 grand check, and like literally, it was just so overwhelming because I just went fishing for myself. Do you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
next minute I know I've got a message to ask to do a film with one of the leading tackle companies, and I'm stood in another one's office. Do you know what I mean? Receiving a check and a trophy. So it was
So
it
that,
was
and
a
how old were you then? Just to interrupt.
13. I was
Wow.
13 then.
So
Yeah.
even then, that's probably like in terms of the stress and the big decisions, that must have been quite overwhelming to have that be in that scenario at that time.
Yeah, it was. It was, of course, because it wasn't something that it wasn't a competition that I had entered myself in. Um,
Yeah.
it was just I posted a few random fish pictures into the magazine, and they sort of jot them all up, and I was
Mm.
sort of entered myself into this competition by the
Yeah.
Anglers Mail guys that were in the office, and the message obviously from Nash then went on to a few more messages to and fro. So then I ended up becoming a young consultant, as they call it for them, when I was still
Hmm.
13 at the time, um, getting bait and tackle and fishing the park lakes and stuff, and went on to do a little bit of filming for them for
Yeah.
their DVDs and stuff, and that sort of progressed from there. Then I think, yeah, sort of from the age of 13 up until now, I've been a sponsored angler when I didn't ever look for the sponsorship. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So
Well, that's the
yeah,
thing. If you're good at something, it comes to you, and I suppose you can't really be as blunt as that when young lads ask you that question.
yeah. Like I say, it's a hard thing because obviously people look up to you. You can't just tell
Mm.
them don't do it. Do you know what I mean? It's the wrong thing
Yeah.
to do. It's not the wrong thing to do. Everyone's entitled to chase what they want to chase and go about it their own ways. I just at the time wasn't chasing it. Maybe if I was in a few more years down the line, I might have. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
You never
Yeah.
know. I might have thought, oh, I want to be like whoever and look up to an angler and think I want to be like that. But where it sort of happened naturally and quickly, I didn't ever think about looking for a sponsorship or anything like that.
Yeah. No, it's hard, isn't it? Because Yeah, I mean, at that time, other than obviously those pictures going into the Angler's Mail or Angling Times, whichever one it was that the only sort of exposure you'd had to,
Yeah,
to the
and
press?
there's obviously a few stupid pictures that I'd put on Facebook, um,
Yeah.
that many like even a few years later, I locked the album and I didn't let no one see it because this was just me fishing. Do you know what I mean? I would be in like
Yeah.
just normal clothes on the weekends, like me and my dad or me and my friend. We just do nights, and it sort of become every weekend, Friday to
Hmm.
Sunday. That's when we'll be carp fishing, and we'd go from all these different lakes on Hampstead when there was 6 lakes to fish, and there was 30
Yeah.
pounders in all of them then, and I think I caught 3 30s in 2 weekends from 2 different lakes. Like all that was adding up, and obviously people were seeing it. This fella was obviously seeing it. Winston, I'm sure it was Winston who messaged me on Facebook, and obviously telling the guys at Nash, we
Mm.
need to get him on this Park Lake, whatnot, like on Urban Banks and stuff. And the
Mm.
actual filming for that Urban Banks didn't happen until about 7 years later.
Right.
But I did manage to do some bits for the DVDs back then beforehand.
Yeah. Yeah. So how did it sort of progress? I mean, did you sort of see it as a career at any point?
Um, I didn't. As a lot of people know, like even now, it's there's still not. There is a lot of money you can make a career out of carp fishing, but in
Mm.
in certain ways. Um,
Yeah.
no one gets paid apart from a selected one or two to carp fish. Do you know what I mean? And just go fishing. And
Hmm.
obviously, there's other stuff that comes with it: writing, filming. You don't just get paid to catch carp.
Mm.
And I've never really liked to think of it that way as a career. I just sort of think of it as, obviously I work within the industry, um, but actually fishing, I've never thought about it being a career, and I've
Mm.
never wanted it to be. Do you know what I mean? I just like it
Yeah.
as it's a nice little bonus, um,
Yeah.
for being good at not good at something. Just well, it's just a natural thing, isn't it? I suppose angling, like hunting,
Yeah.
it's more of an instinct thing. You've
Yeah.
either got
Yeah.
it or you
Definitely.
haven't. you know.
Yeah. No, that's true, mate. Yeah. Do you attend many shows, sort of on the stands?
I used to when I was with Nash years ago. I used to do quite a few. Um,
Hmm.
But then after a while, I didn't, and then obviously now being with Drennan and ESP, they don't do them, so
Right.
that's I haven't done a show for many years. Although I know they're
Hmm.
not how they was going back 7 8 years ago. Do you know what I mean? I've seen them sort of
Yeah.
fizzle out myself, over the years. I know a lot of anglers and people go to catch up with friends and stuff as I do now.
Yeah.
I see some faces that I haven't seen, but a lot of people tend to not go to them now, which is a shame. But I suppose it's like anything. Once you've been to one, you've been to them all.
Yeah. No, that's it. Yeah. Sort of reinventing the wheel, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you're fishing now. Obviously, it's on hold with lockdown, and obviously with you not being in the greatest of health mentally, have you sort of been much, or have you got any plans, or are you just taking it as it comes, just getting yourself better, and then sort of recharging, as it were?
Yeah, I've been thinking about stuff, not overthinking. I,
Hmm.
uh, my mental health state, I've got this horrible association of fear. So if I think about something, I could go
Yeah,
into fear and breathe. Do you know what I mean? I'm breathing heavy,
yeah,
and it's just horrible. Even fishing. So like I've
yeah,
had before the lockdown, I had messages from my cousin. Oh, do you fancy going fishing? And it's like can't breathe in a massive panic, and it's like
yeah,
for God's sake, it's fishing. It's like
yeah,
what I get paid to do. Do you know what I mean? It's what I love. It's what I live
yeah,
and breathe. Like, and it's almost like it's being taken from me. But I am slowly getting better to control these things and know that it's not going to hurt me. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I've been
Yeah.
thinking
Go on.
about things and making some plans. I've got some excited, exciting times ahead.
Hmm.
You know, which are pretty exciting for also myself, but should make some good filming content. Hopefully, once the lockdown is lifted, which I actually
Yeah.
don't have any idea when. It's probably
No, that's the thing, isn't
it's
it?
not
It's
going to
just
be soon.
nobody knows. It's like nobody
Nobody
knows
knows.
what day it is. It's just,
It's
yeah,
horrible. Yeah, it is horrible, especially in London. Like you
yeah. I
see so
suppose no
many.
garden.
You see so many people out. Like, I'm actually lucky. I've got a little park behind me, and I've
Hmm.
got a canal towpath literally a couple of roads away.
Right.
On the Regent's Canal. But you go down there because no one's at work.
Yeah,
Everyone's out. Do you know what I mean?
yeah, yeah. I went out for a walk earlier, and there was a group of probably about 8 lads all on their bikes, just sat there and playing music. And I thought, come on.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, but it's just, I'd imagine each one's probably just told their parents, yeah, I'm just going out for a bike ride on my own, mum. It
yeah,
won't be long. Yeah, yeah, times 8. And it's like, there we go, we've got a group.
yeah. I know it
Um,
is. It is bad.
yeah. How are the family doing? How was it sort of home life wise? Never mind fishing, obviously with you being a bit ill. How have they dealt with it? How's the missus and the boy got on?
Yeah, it's been emotional. It's been great though. Like
Mm.
she's very supportive. She kind of gets the hump sometimes if I go into a bit of a panic and she said something that then I start panicking. She feels bad that it's her that's caused it.
All
When
right.
I have to
Yeah.
tell her afterwards, honey, it's not your fault. You know what I mean? You just have
Yeah.
to bear with it. Like it just happens because I can't help it. And
Hmm.
I'm really usually strong minded, you know, but
Hmm.
obviously sometimes these things get the better of you. But once they're over, yeah, she's been really supportive. Obviously, my boys
Yeah.
helped me through it. I've
Yeah.
got a little 2-year-old son, so sort of waking up with him every day is it
Hmm.
keeps you going. You know, it gives you something
Yeah.
to get up for in the morning. Having a baby.
Yeah. And is he at the terrible two stage yet or not yet?
Yeah, he is now. He is now. He wasn't when he turned 2, but he is
Yeah.
now. Yeah, he's we actually went for a little stroll in the park for some fresh air a couple of days ago with the dog,
Mm.
and he literally he had a tantrum because I wouldn't let him hold the lead. We got a new puppy literally
Yeah.
before we
So.
knew we was going into lockdown. So
Oh no.
I'm a bit funny, like social distancing and people in the park and other dogs coming over. Like he's only a little French bulldog, so he's
Yeah.
tiny, and big dogs come up. So I didn't let him hold the lead, and he sort
Yeah.
of walked in front of us, the boy, um, whilst I was holding the dog and walking along with my girlfriend. And he just
Yeah.
turned around and looked at us and just screamed "Oi" at the top of his voice. And it was just so embarrassing because it's like you don't have a 2-year-old just turn around and scream "Oi" at their parents, you know. And obviously we're she's 21 and I'm 21. Obviously we look really
Yeah.
young. People probably thought, "What the hell?" Like bad parenting. But it was actually
Oh
quite
no.
funny. But it's nice.
Yeah.
Like literally, we had a good little hour's walk, and I was lifting
Yeah.
up these logs and stuff, and there was a big family of newts under the log, like 17
Oh,
newts.
cool.
Yeah, there was like frogs, toads, and a big worm. Like, and the boy was holding them, and he was crying when he wanted to take the newts home. And I said, "Look, this is where they live," and put them back. And the things like that, do you know what I mean? Him getting all excited, talking about the worm
Yeah.
on the way home, like them things are what actually picks you up. Do you know what I mean? When you're
Yeah.
feeling low, it makes you realize like this, like life
Yeah.
is
It sort of
actually
makes
really
everything
precious.
unimportant. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it, you
Oh,
know, and
brilliant.
yeah, that's the main thing, man. That's what really really has kept me going, just spending time with him. But yeah, everyone's been supportive, thank God.
Yeah. No, brilliant. No, it's good to hear, mate. And it's good to hear, like, it sounds like you're on the mend and getting through it, which is the main thing.
Yeah, obviously this whole lockdown thing doesn't help, but I'm just hoping
Yeah.
that it lifts sooner rather than later. Hopefully they
Yeah.
find a vaccination or something to give us that boost through, you know.
Yeah, it's such a weird scenario, isn't it? I mean, I've said it so many times, obviously, because I've been doing one episode a day. So I'm probably sort of repeating myself. Sorry to anyone that's listened to them all. But yeah, it's just, like you said, it's just not something you could ever have envisaged, really. Or, yeah. But I think it makes you appreciate every little thing that we sort of take for granted just because life's 100 mile an hour, and you sort of like, even like you just said, the walks in the park or going somewhere or a little weekend away somewhere with the family, anything like that,
Yeah,
can't take them for granted.
you can't take anything for granted, especially when it can come down like a ton of bricks, you know.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
being being not allowed out, we are allowed out. Do you know what I mean? You
yeah.
go out
Got
for
to check back in an
yeah,
hour.
have a little stroll. Do you know what I mean? Don't be out all day. Just go get your food, whatever, and spend some time with the family. Get everything back on track, and have a little hour's walk every day or a little exercise. You know, that's just back when there was wars and all that kind of stuff. People were
Yeah,
stuck in train stations. Do you know what I mean? With bombs hitting the road
yeah,
above and stuff. Do you know what I mean? All
yeah,
rubble
yeah.
and dust. And,
Basements for
yeah,
weeks, and
living with rats
yeah,
and mice and off corned beef. Do you know what I mean? Tinned
yeah,
corned beef for
yeah,
like
yeah.
6 months.
And we've all got Netflix and delivered pizzas and everything
Yeah,
else, and there are still people fucking complaining about
I
stuff.
I know. Don't you can order something and it's at your door. Do you know what I mean? On Amazon the
Yeah,
next day still and stuff like that.
yeah,
So yeah, don't take things for granted. Definitely not.
yeah. Absolutely, mate. Okay, if we move on to a bit more of your fishing.
Yeah, that's what
Um,
people want to hear, I suppose.
yeah, no, it's okay. No, people will love all this so far, mate. It's fine. Any memorable captures that you can talk about, mate?
Yeah, I have quite a few.
Yeah,
I've
go
done a
on.
sipography thing interview, so a couple of them
Yeah,
are on there. I won't repeat myself, but I've got one that's actually it does it does mean quite a bit because it was a
yeah.
fish that I would have loved to have caught, and I ended up catching it from the canal.
Okay, go on.
But yeah, there was this awesome black linear that I see my friend Billy catch. Didn't witness it in person, but obviously see the photos from the canal, and it was just the darkest, incredible demon-looking fish that I'd ever seen, you know. And no one actually knew that it was around um, on this huge stretch of canal slash river. That's really really rough. Do you know what I mean? It's not for
Yeah,
the faint-hearted where it's located. I didn't think I'd ever get a chance to catch this fish, but I went down on the off chance. Sort of the year before, me and my friend, I wrote a few articles on it before about when you sort of discover something and carp being in the area in certain times of year. Obviously, post spawning, this is on the canal
hmm,
due to where the bream spawn. Obviously, the carp come in and eat the spawn not long after. These
yeah,
carp migrated to this area, obviously every year. So the year before, I had caught a big one, and I went back just on the off chance, and the carp were there as they was. Do you know what I mean? You'd expect them. They're uh, the creatures of habit or whatever you want to say. They seem to
yeah,
follow a pattern. Do you know what I mean?
yeah, yeah,
Um, and yeah, I sort of went down there on the off chance, sort of same time of year, same weekend, and the carp were there, and I literally just done an overnighter, and I ended up catching three. And the second bite was we just fished literally the rods on the floor. He actually had a mid 20 common, and then my rod went, and I had a little mirror, and we actually leave our rods on the floor, and we'd just because we're sat quite back, we'd
hmm,
like lick and stick a rolling paper to the line
yeah,
like a Rizzler, like a
yeah,
white one because it's nighttime. We're fishing it at nighttime. Because not many people do because it's a rough stretch of canal. Do you know what I mean? A lot of people come up and down there that you don't want to bump into in the day, let alone the night. Um,
yeah.
So obviously that little rizzler we could see when it'd shoot off, and you'd have a bite. Like, you can't get buzzes in, it's concrete.
Yeah.
And I was just standing there watching, and the thingy, the spring in my spool must have gone, and the ticker had stopped working, like the tick tick tick, the clutch.
Yeah.
Um, it obviously had gone on the fish before I didn't even notice. And I just see the Rizzler moving, and I thought, what's going on there? I can't hear my reel going. And then it just shot through the rings, and you hear it whoosh, whoosh, goes through all the rings, like when it proper flies off, like, you know. Anyway, I played this fish in, and it was mental, because we literally went, oh my God, that's the black lin. And I just dropped the net, and we just linked arms and just started doing like the can down the canal, screaming and shouting. Like, this was 3 a.m. Do you know what I mean? See a few curtains twitch and that in the flats behind it. People looking out probably thought, oh, the drunks are on it again. Do you know what I mean? Sitting on the bench all night. Yeah, it was absolutely mental. And the fish was mega. Like, sacked it up. Because it was about 3 a.m, done a couple of shots in a few hours time in the light, and it was got it out, and it was inky black, like just incredible 32-pounder. That, looking back at it now, I think it's got a little bit of koi in it or something, because it's just such contrasted dark to orange. Do you know what I mean? It's definitely got something in there, but it's just an absolute demon of a carp, like male, you know. And to have carp like that swimming in the canal, I wouldn't mind catching that, whether it was £10, let alone £32. It's an absolute beast for a canal, you know. But yeah, very memorable capture, and one that obviously means a lot, because it's one that I wanted to catch after seeing it, and didn't. You can't target these fish, you know. It's literally pot luck. Like, there's no chance of targeting them at all, apart from fishing and hoping. Stalking, obviously, you got a slim chance, but it's so hard on there. Otherwise, that's what I'd be doing, you know. So yeah, one of them ones, when your luck's in, I guess.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's amazing. I suppose as well, you must have to wade through a lot of other species as well on the
Yeah,
canals and stuff like that.
yeah. There's a lot of bream. It sort of meant a lot, because that section, sort of a few months prior, we had a warm spell in March, and I went down there, and we was lamping, me and my mate, and I was putting a bit of bait in, and anyway, I said to my other pal, "I'll come down, like, just have a look at the bait." This was just on like a Wednesday, do you know what I mean? 2 a.m.
Yeah.
No rods or nothing. And then I heard this, I was putting a little bit of bait in, and then I heard this like bike sort of skid up behind me. And this was like early hours of the morning. And obviously this fella, this young boy with a face mask, balaclava on, has put the bike down, and then 3 more of them have come. Asked me for a cigarette, and I was smoking at the time, so I said, "Oh yeah." Asked me where I was from. I said, "Oh," they actually said, "Oh, are you fishing?" I said, "Oh no, I'm just putting a bit of fishing bait in, like so and so." Chitty chatty, obviously didn't have no rods. And next minute, somehow out of their trousers, they pulled this massive Rambo tactical knife, and held it up to me, you know, like, "What you doing? Where you from? What you got?" Phones out, money out. Didn't want none of that. It was, and then they said, "Oh, so one of our mates got robbed." Thought it could have been you guys. Anyway, ended up talking to them, and talking my way out of it, and it sort of put me off the night fishing. Do you know what I mean? I'm all for not being scared. Do you know what I mean? But when you got a little boy at home, a lot of people know what goes on with young people and gang violence in London. I know. Do you know what I mean? I've had mates caught up in it, mates that have died, and mates that obviously are in prison. And fishing gets me away. Do you know what I mean? It gets me away from that. And I thought, do you know what? With my boy, I could have quite easily said, like, "Are you having a effing laugh or something?" That could be the end of your life. It's not worth it for a carp. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not worth it. So I caught that black linear afterwards, And I sort of think it was all, I like to think about karma, and I
Yeah.
think that might have been some good
Move on.
some good potluck karma that I caught that fish after what happened earlier on in the spring.
Yeah.
But yeah, no,
Cool.
that was a mega one.
Yeah. Nice. Have you got pictures of that one that we can maybe put up when I do make this podcast live?
Yeah, definitely. I've got
Yeah, that'd be
photos I
good
can
to
ping
see.
over to you.
Cool. Okay. Got any more stories?
Stories, capture stories,
Yeah.
or
Well, in fact, any. It's getting us through the lockdown, mate. Any funny stories, scary stories, capture stories, whichever ones that stick in your mind. Bring it on.
I've got a few funny stories. I used to
Yeah.
fish with my mate Kay. He sort of took a bit of a break from it all now, but we used to
Mm.
fish everywhere together. It would be me and him every weekend doing 2 nights, and we actually had this thing where we wanted to catch a Thames carp. This is years ago. I'm going back probably like 10 years, although it's
Mm.
not a long time. It's
Yeah.
a lot of stuff's happened in my
Half of
angling.
your life, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty much half of my life. So we used to get the train. We got the train all the way from Camden to Richmond, and then bus to Kingston, and fished on the old Slug and Lettuce,
Right.
which is a famous spot. Obviously, a lot of carp get caught from there, not far from the Hogs Mill,
Hmm.
and we used to get plagued and plagued and plagued by bream. Um, so we ended up walking for about 2 miles. Well, it felt like 2 miles. It might have not been until we got sort of to Hampton Court,
Mm.
bit further up, and I literally just said to him, he said something about he would love to just come across a nice beach area to fish for the night. Do you know what I mean? To get away from these bream. And as we as we come round the corner, it just appeared in front of us, a nice 30-yard stretch of. We both said it at the same time, like them little things from Toy Story. We went Shingle Beach. It was literally all these little stones, like a shingle beach, and yeah, we literally just crashed out there for the night. That was pretty funny. That was pretty funny, and we got battered by the bream there as well. So we ended up
Yeah.
going back down for the Saturday night to the Slug and Lettuce again, and caught loads of bream. And I thought, I can't deal with this no more. I had these massive Livermino barrels that I made that were about 60 mil long by about 30 mil 30 mil wide, and had a big Gamakatsu G point, like a size 2 or something ridiculous at the time, proper strong hook.
Yeah.
I said, I can't deal with these K no more. I'm gonna put put this on so I can get some sleep. And I remember about 2 hours later, the bobbin just went up because it's fishing under the tips. The bobbin just rise
Mm.
and the tips would knock when you had a bream. So the bobbin's gone
Yeah.
to the top and the tips bent over. And I literally strolled up to the rod because it was about 10 yards away. And as I went to pick it up, it just absolutely melted. It just went into absolute meltdown. I picked up the rod, sort of tightened up the spool, and it just stripped me for about 30, 40 yards. I only had it on for about 10 seconds. That's how quick this fish was going. And
Yeah.
the hook pulled,
Ah.
and I looked around and he just went bream. And I just threw the rod on the floor. I don't think we spoke for like the whole journey home. It was, but them little things, that's what make
Yeah.
that's what make fishing, That's
Yeah. Absolutely. If you can share it with a mate,
yeah,
um, yeah, it's always the experiences that you remember, isn't it? Sometimes it's not always the captures, but it's the bits around it.
yeah, yeah. It's great because even when there's been other people there with this in the past, I would have banter. I say, remember that thing that I hooked down Kingston on the Thames? He'd go. I'd say to him like, that weren't no bream, brother. I said that was something substantial, and he'd just say, no, it was a bream. And then he'd be like, "There's no chance. That was definitely a catfish or something like that." It was just, yeah, it's just
Yeah, savage.
good memories and good times, with
Yeah,
good
nice.
friends.
I fished a stretch as a kid there with my brother. My dad used to work in Kingston for a glazing firm, and in the summer holidays, occasionally would only happen a few times. He would drop us off there in the daytime. He'd go to work, and we just fish like for the bream and stuff. And I remember catching my one and only eel. It was about,
Yeah,
I think it was like £2.5, nearly £3. God, I remember trying to unhook the thing. I think I must have been 10, 9 or 10, something like that. And I was like trying to hold it, and it's almost like someone's got control of your arms because it was like
yeah.
trying to tie yourself in knots. And you're like, what's going on here? Yeah, I remember just cutting the line in the end and throwing it back in.
Yeah, I know. I haven't caught many eels, but people that have told me some horror stories.
Yeah,
Um,
because they can just go across the land, can't they, as well?
yeah, I know. My mate caught one out the North Met in the Lee Valley. He reckoned it was
Mm.
about £8. He said it was an absolute giant. He thought it was a
Oh,
carp when he was playing it on a plastic boilie. Um,
yeah.
but yeah, I've personally not had much experience with eels, and I don't
Yeah, well,
plan
that's the
to.
one and only. Yeah, it
Yeah,
was
although
swimming backwards and everything when I was trying to play it. I was like, I think it's swimming backwards, said to my brother on like a little feeder rod. I was like, oh, horrible. Yeah.
yeah, they are horrible things. But the Thames is known for it. I know my mate Kay used to go with his dad down Tower Bridge, carp rods, um,
Mm.
and just fish like chicken tikka strips and bits of bacon and stuff on boat rigs and catch loads of eels. They said it was really good fun because his dad would sea fish, like sea angler,
Right. Okay.
um,
Yeah.
and that's sort of the closest part of bit of sea fishing that it'd be able to
Yeah.
experience. You
Baby
know what I mean?
congers. Right. Moving on from eels. Have you got any more carpy stories you can share with us, Alfie?
Yeah, I have one carpy story that's obviously it's actually a good job that I was there at the time. I remember Sam Jeffries. I was fishing with him, good angler, and we was fishing. This is years ago now, on a res guesting in
Mm-hmm.
London. We're going back. I'm going back 8-9 years, and it, we was fishing together off these like jetties, these pontoons that run out into the lake about 30-40 yards, and not fishing far off them. And these are obviously rarely caught semi big pit carp, And it was cold. I remember we sort of fished the autumn, but it was sort of a late one, October, November. We started baiting the beginning of October and started fishing the end of it. And we was catching fish regularly. And one morning, we literally just had our rods like on buzz bars that were just jammed in the slats of the wood, like with a bank stick, and the rods lent on a bucket, flipped over bucket,
Yeah.
like the butts, And I
Yeah.
remember in the morning, I used to literally, when you got a bite, it was like quite a long run down the end of this jetty, and then obviously you play the fish off there. But it was quite good fishing, he's had this take, and I can only think now, looking back at what happened, that as he's got near the rod, I've obviously grabbed the net. His spool cap, because he was fishing as the clutch is quite loose at the time, so the rods didn't get dragged in. His spool cap must have fell off his tournament, and it's obviously the fish is going so fast that the line's peeled off the spool and obviously got caught somehow. Birds nested and dragged the rod in with such force that all that was left on his buzz bar was just the screw thread of the Neville. Literally, the Neville went in, the rod just went in, and Sam actually dived in after it. And it took him probably, I'm standing there on the end of this pontoon. There's just a screw thread on the buzz bar where the Neville's been smashed off, a spool cap, and he's disappeared. It was cold, so I had a lot of clothes on. And I'm standing there, I'm thinking, what do I do? And then he's like popped up right in front of me. And Sam was always wearing some form of funny hat. He had this mental woolly hat on that had just completely covered his face. And I ended up helping him out, and sorting him out, and then he played this fishing, and it was still on at this carp after all faffing about and making sure he was warm and stuff, and it was a 35-pound mirror, which was it was a good buzz. But obviously it goes to show, like, he literally just caught the butt of the rod. If it was me, I probably would have let the rod go, you know. But if I wasn't there, it could have been a different story. But that's obviously a story that turned good and didn't turn bad. But it could have gone either way, you know.
Yeah, so, definitely. When was that, like in the autumn, did you say?
Yeah, it was cold. So obviously we had a lot of clothes on. So it was probably November, the beginning of November. He had a massive woolly hat on. I just remember him popping up with a rod in his hand. And the hat was just like completely rolled down, beanie hat, all over his face. He couldn't see, and helped him out. Obviously took some clothes and stuff off of him and stuff like that, like jacket and whatnot. And we ordered a cab, like, just as we was doing the photos of the fish, and obviously jumped over the fence and we was away. But yeah, it was pretty scary at the time, like in that panic of 20 seconds when he didn't pop up. 15 seconds, it felt like forever, and it was just like, as he come out with a rod and the hat over his face, it was like the sword of Excalibur, you know. It was
rising from the depths.
Yeah, there was probably people that had just woke up, because it's like 7 a.m. on their balconies overlooking, like probably having their morning tea, do you know what I mean, or out their kitchen windows, and they've probably just seen all that unfold and just thought, what are these two lunatics up to? Do you know what I mean?
One for you've been framed if they got it.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Yeah, that was funny.
No. Yeah, that's I remember that used to happen regularly, like years ago when I first started getting into carp fishing and would fish sort of bolt rigs rather than quiver tipping, and we'd just have the back wind on because there wasn't really any drags as such.
Yeah.
And it was a case of you had to ask someone to watch your rod if you nipped off to go for a pee, because if something happened, it would just be in. And I think it probably happened like 3 times to me in the course of a few years, and a couple of times to my brother. You just see your rod go sliding off the platform where something didn't go right with the back wind, or it jammed or something on the rod rest, and it just pinged in. They're only small carp.
Yeah.
I think the biggest was about 8 or 9 pounds.
Oh, yeah.
But they just used to tear off, and they'd be like, right, get a rod. You'd be like casting around with a big sea hook to try and get the rod back.
Yeah, I've actually never had a rod pulled in. I nearly did on that same res, to be fair. I left my rods on the floor, but there was like a scaffold board on the edge of this wooden platform. And I was fishing my rod out to the right-hand rod. And in the morning, obviously, I'd put my buzzers away and just leave the 3 rods out there for bite time, like, you know, just watching the line. And the right-hand rod literally slid about 15 yards down along the scaffold board, obviously, because it was at an angle. There's no resistance. Scaffold pole, sorry. And the bail arm actually got, the metal bit of the bail arm actually got caught in a gap right at the edge of the pontoon, just before, like in between the wooden slats, and it was just ripping. Like I hooked into this fish and flat rodded me for about 20 seconds, then come off, and I had 2 scales on the on hook. No. Yeah, probably foul hooked, you know, but that was actually the spring after Sam jumped in after his rod, and it was the only fish I lost actually that spring.
Yeah. How do you go about fishing a new water, mate? Like, what have you got? Like a set sort of few things that you do beforehand?
Do you know what, Dom? It sounds quite. It's not selfish, but I like to sort of fish waters where I know there's not many anglers and not much going on, because my sort of style of approach is I'll just bait dominate. Do you know what I mean? Carp are hungry, and I'll just bait for a long while and bring them to me. Do you know what I mean? I sort of do a lot of pre-baiting on. Obviously, it doesn't work for everyone and on every venue, but I do a lot of baiting around my fishing and in my free time, because I don't actually fish that much, which is surprising. I might get a night a week, but I generally do well because the spots and the areas are always primed. Do you know what I mean? So it's 50% of the work is done. I would say it depends on the venue. Obviously, new water, but definitely the best thing I could advise anyone, if they can get away with it, is pre-baiting. The more time spent doing that and getting the carp's confidence up makes them a hell of a lot easier to catch. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. There's nothing quite like sort of knowing that you've got a spot rocking and you can just turn up clipped up even in the dark and flick them out onto it.
Yeah, there's nothing.
That's
There's,
exciting fishing, isn't it?
yeah, there's nothing that beats it. You know, I just like to know when I go, I'm gonna catch a carp. Like, I tend to make everything a lot easier than make it harder. That's why I think I fish the venues I fish. Like, some of the fish are special, and I'll spend more time baiting and making sure when I do go that I've got the best chance of catching one in the short limited time than fishing a hell of a lot more and catching just as many. Do you know what I mean? With the chances of, I can just go down the lake, bait up for an hour, say every other day, every 3 days for a month, and when I drop in, I'll get 5 or 6 bites. Whereas without baiting and doing the odd night, you might blank, you might have to move on to fish, you might scare them, they might not come back by the time you've done the overnight, or you might nick the odd bite. Do you know what I mean? I sort of tend to bait hard and know when I drop in, I'm going to get a hit of fish.
Yeah. How much would you typically put in a baiting trip?
It depends, obviously, on the stock. Do you know what I mean? I tend to, obviously, baiting more regularly, little and often, is better. If you can sort of bait up in the morning and the evening with a handful of boilies instead of like 5 key every 4 days or whatever, then obviously that's going to be better, little and often. But I tend to bait heavy for a week. I like to bait a month, so let the moon phase finish and pass, and then sort of bait up to the next full moon. It's generally there or thereabouts a month's time, on whatever venue I'm fishing, you know. So I'll tend, the first week I'll put in maybe a couple of 20-litre buckets of pigeon conditioner for sort of 5 days, and then a bucket every sort of 3 days leading up to the third week, and then I'll sort of every day I'll try and get down every other day and put something like boilies. Do you know what I mean? I'll add boilies into the mix sort of progressively as I go on through the baiting campaign. But as I sort of get to the last week, I tend to cut the seed out. Obviously, because it's cheap. Do you know what I mean? Seed, sweet corn, that kind of stuff. Boilies are expensive. Do you know what I mean? It's not. People can't just go and throw in 40 kilo of boilies, like, and then 20 kilo every 3 days after that. But it helps. Obviously, that time you got bird. You have a lot. You have a lot to obviously think about. If there's a lot of bird life, they're going to eat a lot of it. If it's low stock, by the time the carp turn up, there might not be nothing left, even within like 2-3 days. Do you know what I mean? When the carp do turn up and you've got birds, they can go for a hell of a lot of bait. I remember actually watching these carp in Hyde Park about 8 years ago, and I was baiting up. This was before the ticket started, and I put out 5 kilo of boilie, and I think it was about 20 minutes, and all the bait had gone. Like, I was watching them eat it. Do you know what I mean? There was obviously a lot of carp there. There was probably 15, 20 carp. But I used to go down with like my rucksack. Do you know what I mean? Full of ground bait balls and like 10 kilo ground bait balls and stuff like that. Because that was easy for me back then. I could just freeze ground bait balls or scalded pellet, get 10 kilo out by throwing it out close in and just throwing out boilies by hand. And I used to think to myself after I saw that, bloody hell, they're eating that before I even get on the bus. Do you know what I mean? So that sort of opened my eyes to baiting heavy. I know.
And I suppose as well, with the bird seed and the conditioner, you're sort of giving them a chance to clear the spot off a bit as well before you fish it.
Yeah, definitely. Of course, salt. I'm a big I'm a big fan of using salt. I know salt really does
Mm.
get the carp cleaning them spots off. You know, it's good for them as well. So I tend to put a lot of salt in with my particle. They really like that. Obviously, heavily like glugged boilies. Do you know what I mean? With foods and stuff like that's going to be there for the carp to eat, even if it's just like flavors the bottom. Do you know what I mean? Whilst you're not there, but obviously not every water's going to be susceptible to pre-baiting. Like you can't go onto somewhere like a circuit water and sort of pre-bait. It's sort of out of the picture really. Because it's just defeating the object. Like as you've baited up, someone else is slotting in behind you. It's not, you're not going to benefit in your angling in the slightest. But yeah, definitely certain venues, like less busy venues or venues where you can get something going. I tend to bait heavy and kind of bring the fish to me, you know.
Yeah, nice. So at the beginning of that, you talked about moon phases. Why don't you talk to us a little bit about that? I mean, how do you sort of use them? Do you use them to your advantage?
I definitely have used them to my advantage in the past. I know on the shallow, clear park lakes that I noticed sort of over the years, you think you just remember that a lot of big carp that you caught. Because I obviously used to fish a hell of a lot compared to what I do now. Fell on them full moon nights. Like you can all, I'm sure almost everyone can remember when they're playing a big carp and it's a full moon, you know, or them nights where they look out and it's a full moon out of their bivvy or whatever, and they have a good trip. But I noticed on the shallow clear lakes it affects them a lot. I know I've done particularly well over the years fishing like white pop-ups over heavily baited areas, just singles, and done really well because they can see it. I'm sure they can see that hook bait. Do you know what I mean? In them light levels. I don't read into it too much. I just go on experience. Do you know what I mean? I know that obviously during them full moons, the carp acts a little bit different from experience. And I think if you haven't experienced it, it can kind of send your mind a little bit mad if you read into it too much.
Yeah.
You know?
No, definitely.
Yeah.
It's one of those things, isn't it? If you're
I use them to my I use them to my advantage, obviously, with the baiting side of things. That's what I could say. Like, I know full moons are good. Why that is, I can't explain. I've just had good success when it's been a full moon. Everything's more active. The nature's more active. The animals are. Do you know what I mean? Everything's just awake during the night hours when everything's supposed to be sleeping. So I use my baiting, obviously leading up to a time when I know the carp are going to be really active, and sort of let it merge all into one. And obviously, it's all pieces of the puzzle, isn't it, to having a successful session.
No, definitely. Yeah, that's a really good point. I've always done well as well on white pop-ups around that time.
Yeah.
What about zigs? Do you ever fish zigs?
I used to fish on the park lakes. I used to fish. I'm not sure how you would, like Hampstead and that growing up. My cousin actually showed me this, almost like a marker float setup. I don't know what you'd call that, a pendulum or some. I'm not too sure. But you'd have like obviously like a marker float, but instead of using a marker float boom or like a pike boom, do you know what I mean? We'd just use a section of line. So like a running rig.
Like a paternoster.
Yeah, like a paternoster, a paternoster with a big bit of crust. Massive bit of crust, you know. You size 6 hook and just get the old split tin loaf, cut a big square out, cast it out, sort of feather it as it hits the surface, but then everything goes slack, and you sort of feed the crust up to the surface like a marker float.
Right. Yeah.
You get a couple of hours, right? Just bring it under the surface because of seagulls, and sort of flick some mixers out and float a fish over the top of that.
Right.
And we had great success doing that over the years, but more so because I think the big hook, do you know what I mean? I've used zigs, don't get me wrong, but I'm not a fan of little hooks. I've lost a lot of carp on zigs, and that's the only sort of form of zig that I've used where I've landed a lot of fish because obviously the hook size, you know.
Yeah. Yeah,
I'm not
tend to
really a
beef up
fan
the
of
hook.
I'm not really a fan of zigs, if I'm honest.
Yeah. I'd only use them with a bigger hook now because it's same as that. Because normally you're fishing for bigger fish, aren't you? You just want to stack the odds in your favour, don't you? I think.
Yeah, I think it's just it's not even bigger fish. I think it's just the fish are more special. You don't want to be losing them.
Yeah.
So obviously you want everything to be in your favour when you get that bite to land in that carp. And I don't think that using a teeny weeny hook is going to and a big lead bouncing about on a long length of thin line is going to do any favours. But I know people that do really well on zigs. Do you know what I mean? There's lots of anglers out there that do mega well on zigs. It's just something that I've not really had to bring into my angling as of such. So until I have to, I'll avoid them at all costs.
Yeah. It does seem to divide people. I mean, I know a lot of people that love them and a lot of people that avoid them at all costs. Just one of those things, isn't it, I suppose, what you're confident in.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. If we move on to a question from one of our last guests, and that's what one approach, if you could choose, or if you had to just pick any, what one approach or method would you use if you had to use that for the rest of your fishing days? So whether it be like stalking or zig fishing or fishing over a load
fishing,
of bait.
obviously, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be one method. It'd probably be stalking. I'd say stalking is probably the method that I'd use because if you're obviously targeting a certain fish, it's going to narrow that a lot quicker down to obviously seeing it and targeting it. And for myself, I like short little sessions. I've caught loads. Most of my big carp have been caught stalking on bread flake and stuff like that. So yeah, if I was told that's the only thing I could do for the rest of my life, I certainly wouldn't be grumbling because I'd rather be doing that than sat behind 3 rods in the freezing cold.
Yeah, no, nice. That's a good answer, mate. Have you got a question that we can ask our next guest, please?
The next guest, the question is, if there was, I don't know if you've had this, if there was one hook size you could use for the rest of your carp fishing days, what would it be?
Okay. No, I haven't that. What would your answer be to that?
Mine would probably be a size 4. a size 4, probably wide gate pattern hook.
Yeah. Why is that?
Why is that?
Yeah.
So I suppose it's a very versatile pattern, you know. You can use it stalking. I've caught most of my big carp been caught using size 2 hooks in bread flake, you know. You can use it sort of on almost any rig. Great bottom bait hook. I actually use it on a pop-up rig, like a wide gate pattern. So it's great for sort of any sort of style of rig and approach, you know. Apart from zigs, I imagine the old bread zigs would work because we used to use size 6 and 4 wide gates back then. But I don't know about using like 8-10 pound line and a big hook and a tiny bit of foam. I don't know how that'd sit pretty, but I think it's quite a versatile size and pattern.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So was your question what size or what style or both?
Yeah, kind of both, really. Both.
Okay. Let me make a note. Size and style. Cool. Okay. One last thing before you go, mate. We're getting everyone to draw a carp.
Yeah.
within 60 seconds. So just do a sketch of a carp in 60 seconds. If you could video it and then take a picture at the end, and then we're just going to do like a little fun competition at the end of lockdown once I've got all the entries in.
And send it to you.
We do like, yeah, send it to me and we do like some little daft prize or something.
Okay, no worries.
Yeah, cool. Okay, mate. Right, Alfie, thank you very much for your time. I've really enjoyed this episode.
No, you're welcome, Dom. Anytime.
Brilliant. Right, take care and stay safe, mate.
You too. Take care.